Welcome to the In Search of More podcast. I am your host, Eli Nash. Join me weekly on my quest for more from myself and more from this world. We'll see you on the other side. All right. Welcome, Rabbi Touger.
Thank you.
I'm sitting here with Rabbi Eli Touger. Amongst other things, I'm sure there's many things about you, but the way I know you as the translator, it's more than a translator, but for lack of a better word, of many sichos, including the selections of the sichos, which I've spoken about a number of times on this podcast. And it's an honor to be sitting with you, chatting with you, and seeing how this information has changed you. Because I'm trying to get the information to change me. So I'm assuming...
Learning changes. That's the very nature of learning, is that you grow.
That's the hope.
If you don't grow, you haven't learned.
Right, I hear that. So I want to get into...
By the way, a beautiful story on that.
Okay, beautiful.
Guy came to Chassidic. Chassidic had a kollel in Lubavitch. And the guy says, I want to come to your kollel. I says, I know... In Yiddish, it goes a little better. It went Bavli, Yushalmi. Sam said, sag mir nicht, wie viel du hast gelernt, and sag mir, wie viel Torah dir gelernt. Don't tell me how much Torah you have mastered. Tell me how much Torah has mastered you.
Yeah.
So the point of learning is always, actually in yeshiva, in psychology, they say learning is a change in behavior. And so I was like, when I come to, when college to yeshiva, I said, we're going to learn. No, we're going to study. No, we don't study, we learn. I was like, what's the difference in the words? And it was really a problem for me. Then I learned chapter 5 in Tanya. And the Alter Rebbe explains there how learning is you're structuring the way your brain works. Once you've learned something, your brain works differently.
Would das be when it...
Das is when you take it home and it hits you. But even just
the
learning of it, you don't view the world in the same way anymore.
And that would be the level of Bina.
Chochmah and Bina together, kind of.
Right, both.
Yeah, but das is when you really take it home and make it real, and it's gonna. But even just the idea that, hey, I look at the world differently. That's a very important thing, because once you've really done that, you're changed.
Right, changes the way someone thinks.
Yeah.
Right. I see that, for example, in business. I see that with engineers. If someone's an engineer, they think a certain way. It's like you have to talk a different language, right? The learning has changed them.
They're stuck that way.
Right. Right. The whole brain works in that way. It's got to be linear. It's got to be, this leads to that, which leads to the next thing. Yeah, it's programmed.
That's actually my motion when I teach that Perek in Tanya. You're programming your computer.
So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to program ourselves.
Yeah, or let's put it this way. God gave us the program, and we're trying to actually get it done.
We're trying to install it.
Yeah. Installation manual sometimes takes a little bit of effort, but...
I heard 40 years. I don't know what the source for that is, but I've heard it. I'm turning 40 next year.
After 40 years, you attain the wisdom of your teacher.
Right.
In other words, a teacher can give you a message, and you don't assimilate it immediately, but you work at it, and you work at it, you work at it, because he's giving you a deep message.
And over the course of 40 years, one understands it. So I figured, is there also a source that God is referred to as a teacher? I know God has many different... there are many different metaphors for the relationship between us and God. So one is teacher. So I've thought that it would also take 40 years for a person to understand the teacher, the grand teacher.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Well, more than 40 years. I mean, hopefully we're all going to live much longer than 40.
Right. I'm thinking about that.
And then you're constantly learning, constantly growing.
Right. I'm thinking about that because I'm in my 40th year. That's why I'm thinking about this thought.
Whatever's into that. Lev Ladas, Menayim Liros. And actually the word is Lev Ladas, a knowing heart.
Lev Ladas?
Yeah, that's the Lashon. A knowing heart.
A knowing heart.
I think that's just a beautiful phrase.
What does it mean to you?
Look, a heart is where we feel. And we go all directions. Because if you you're alive, you can be, so you respond this way, you respond that way spontaneously. That's the nature of life.
Right.
Knowledge, hey, let me see what it is. Take myself out of the picture. Just what is this phenomenon? Objectively, because that's knowledge, what it is. Knowing
versus what we want it to be.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
2 + 3 = 4
Right.
until you get to high mathematics. Can't stop that. A knowing heart means my heart that's full of energy and full of activity and running this way and this way still has that same energy, but now sees objectively. It's a powerful thing.
I was sitting here with a gentleman by the name of Yaakov Kirsch. He was an accountant, business guy turned student of life.
Okay.
And he's gone through many different Kabbalah and historical things, many concepts. And during it, I asked him about Chabad and if at any point in time he worked with some of those teachings. So he spoke a little bit about the Tanya, and he said that while learning the Tanya, he felt that a lot of the message he got from Ma'ich Shalat Al Alev was repressed emotions. He felt the message he was getting was one of his emotions being repressed. And he wasn't saying in any way to put down Chabad or at all, God forbid. He was just saying it as when he just encountered it from that perspective.
I understand it because it looks that way on a surface. But the real truth is it's controlled emotions. This is we're going up to Chayelu. Chayelu is Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe's birthday.
Right.
Same day. And the Alter Rebbe would call the Baal Shem Tov his grandfather, even though they were not, grandson, son and grandfather and father in a simple biological way. Excuse me. What did he mean by that? He's the true progenitor of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings. So a lot of Chassidim all over, because what was the Baal Shem Tov? Rahman al-Libabar. God wants the heart. God wants you, the story of the young shepherd who cries out cock-a-doodle-doo in the middle of Rosh Hashanah davening. That's the Baal Shem Tov. Chabad? That's seemingly a departure, not a continuation.
Yes.
That's the same.
Yeah,
argument.
this is exactly what the gentleman who was sitting here not long ago said.
Yeah. So
that there's a departure from the Baal Shem Tov to the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya.
And in Chabad, and so there are a lot of people in Lubavitch who misunderstand. Like Lubavitch tries to explain that, but a lot of people, even Lubavitch themselves, misunderstand it. They tell you, listen, the Baal Shem Tov is very important because it excites you emotionally, gives you that powerful urge forward. But you can't live that way. You can't shout cock-a-doodle 24/7. They'll put you. The guys in the white coats will come after you. So you need the Alter Rebbe to stabilize you, and you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
But where do we get this
Wait a
from?
second.
Okay.
Is that correct? No. That's Polish Chassidim say Chabad is a mamzer. Pardon my French. What I mean. The Alter Rebbe was a Lithuanian. He had that classic Lithuanians in intellectual perspective. But he saw the Magid. He saw the fire of Hasidism. He couldn't stop. So he mixed the two together. That's what I say. It's a hybrid, a mamzer.
Right.
So that's what these people are saying Chabad is. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. No, that's totally wrong. What the Alter Rebbe did is he taught you to channel your intellect, that emotional energy through your brain, that it's now powerful and directed. Like I said, a knowing heart. That your heart has the full power that it always had, but now you're using it. It's not just going haywire, because as emotions can sometimes do.
So it's like a trained horse.
Yeah, exactly. A trained, cultured, developed, focused. You take that laser energy, and it's now all focused. It's where you want to choose it, where you think it's most necessary. So like, as you said, the guy did it on his own. That's one of my problems. A lot of brilliant people, they learn Chabad. They learn it on their own. And, hey, they're brilliant people. But, they misconceive it because unfortunately, even Chabad itself doesn't always explain the teachings well enough. If you've got to get into them from the proper teachers.
So how does one go about this?
Look, you look for masters.
You what?
You look for masters. Like, one of the things that I was very careful about in yeshiva, of course, to hit the books, but besides the books, the people who the books had mastered, as I said before. Those people who had assimilated those teachings, lived them, they were expressions of them.
Not just knowledge.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
They were living examples of what they were doing. I mean, I was very lucky because I had the chance to meet these people. I mean, I sat with Yoel many years, Rebbe Khan, sat with Mendel Futzelfest for a long amounts of time. You meet these people, they teach you just by being themselves.
Right.
Besides the intellectual knowledge that they'll give you, just the actual being who they are is a lesson, and the most powerful lessons you can possibly have.
So let's go down that path, your story, how you grew up and how you came to doing the work you're doing.
Look, there's a classic story of the Alter Rebbe's Chaver teacher, Menachem Mendel Vitebsk. He grew up in the Magi's household. I don't know the exact reasons why he was. I think he was an orphan, but I'm not sure. But he was raised by the Magid. When he was 12 years old, 12 and a half years old, just preparing for his bar mitzvah, the man said, "We'll take you to the Baal Shem Tov." He's going to the Baal Shem Tov for Shabbos. All Shabbos, one hand the Baal Shem Tov waited for him. He was very meticulous about his dress. So he was adjusting his clothes, his clothes before he came into shul. And Baal Shem Tov it was late. Baal Shem Tov didn't start davening until he came in. So it was obviously Baal Shem Tov knew that this was going to be a very special person. But all Shabbos he didn't pay any attention to him. Motzei Shabbos the Maggid took him over and introduced him to the Baal Shem Tov personally.
You said he was 12 years old?
Yeah, 12 and a half.
Wow.
The Maggid introduced him personally. And Baal Shem Tov started telling him a long story. A parable, which is, long story. Afterwards, when it's probably about 50, 60 years later, I don't know the exact chronology, he decides to travel to Eretz Yisrael. And on his way to Eretz Yisrael, he goes to visit for a blessing the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, one of the Baal Shem Tov's primary students, Chaverim almost he was a great man in his own right, the Toldos. So as Menachem Mendel Vitebsk comes to the Toldos, he says, Toldos tells him, "Do you remember the story the Baal Shem Tov told you?" He says, "Of course, that's why I'm here." Mm-hmm. In the story, it said that I was supposed to meet you at my way to Eretz Yisrael. Each person has such a story written in heaven for him. Baal Shem Tov told him told Menachem Mendel Vitebsk his story beforehand, so he could kind of go along with it. We aren't told the story; we got to stumble our way to it. But my story, I was destined for my job. My family come from Borisov in White Russia. Borisov is a classic Lubavitcher town. Sholem Borisov is one of the famous Chassidim. I have a Torah or sitter from a great-grandfather.
You have what?
A Torah or sitter, the same sitter
cool.
that I used to daven with. It looks not quite as bad as the Rebbe sitter looks, but so family's Lubavitch, but they were American. They came over in 1900s. From 1900 to 1960, living in America, you can imagine, not in a Lubavitch community per se.
A lot changed.
And I grew up in typical Long Island Jewish family. I mean, people probably understand what suburban Long Island Jewish means. We were very Jewishly conscious, very Jewishly practiced, but not Torah mitzvahs practicing.
Right. So Shabbos existed, halachic Shabbos didn't exist.
Exactly.
Got it.
That's cute. I remember Shabbos existed. Like one of my friends, next door neighbor, he had stilts. So one day he's standing on his stilts from his backyard. He sees our Shabbos table. And he's just mesmerized. Because he never saw that in his own house. He's Jewish,
right.
But he never saw it. And he just says, wow, what is this? I said, Shabbos. And he goes, I don't understand. What is it? And I didn't...
What was he seeing, a meal?
Yeah, a Shabbos meal with the candles and Kiddush.
Right.
And it was just like, the whole family sitting together. My grandfather was there, my father's mother, and my grandmother all sitting together around the same table comfortably. That whole scene was so foreign for him in suburban America.
Right.
But, again, that was, so we were Jewishly conscious. So we had a Shabbos, but it was not a halach Shabbos by any means. That said, so growing up in America, conservative Judaism, I remember Morris Friedman, David Friedman's father, was our rabbi.
David Friedman.
David Friedman, the ambassador to...
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, so he looks exactly like his father, by the way. His father was a very special Jew. But, I got a lot of Jewish commitment from him, which I thank him very much for. But I remember at age 14, came into Rabbi Friedman, can I have a moment with you? Sure. Come over anytime, we'll sit down together. So I come into his office. Rabbi, listen. By now I've been going to Hebrew school, and I was good at it, so I knew the stuff. So tell me, what's this all about? Give me a guideline for Judaism. So he goes, Alan, you're a very smart boy. You're going to go through life. You're going to see a lot of good things that you like, that you think are valuable. Whatever you find valuable, know that's Judaism.
No, that's Judaism.
No, that's Judaism. So I said, thank you, Rabbi Friedman. It's been good talking to you. I walked out of the door, and I wasn't going back again. Because what he's telling me, hey, I got nothing to sell you.
Right, it was a non-answer. It wasn't quite...
Looking back now, I understand where he's coming from because he was a conservative rabbi, and that's kind of what he's got to sell. But...
It wasn't quite the Baal Shem Tov's prediction of the future that Mendel Vitebsk got.
No, but it was...
The opposite.
It took me the other way,
right,
which was very important because I hadn't seen that other way. I mean, I did Chicago, I did Woodstock. I mean, I saw America as it is, and it's very important to have done that. The Reverend Rash had yechidus with people, very short, sometimes like a minute and a half. It was a long yechidus with Reverend Rash. Short yechidus. So one time he sat with 50 people in an hour and a half. He came out dripping with sweat. His attendant looked at him, Rebbe, I understand that sitting with people, it's important. It takes energy. You get involved. But you're dripping with sweat. Why? He says, if you did 150 changes of clothing in an hour and a half, wouldn't you be dripping with sweat?
Right.
He says, what do you mean 150 changes of clothing? He says, look, listen. When a person's talking to me, I have to get into his shoes. Otherwise, I won't be able to understand him. Then I can't answer him from his perspective. As Einstein said, if you're stuck in the problem, you don't know the answer. I've got to go back to my shoes. But from my shoes, he won't understand the answer. So I've got to get back into his shoes. I saw 50 people, 150 changes of clothing. Is it a wonder I'm dripping with sweat? So the same thing really works in translation. You can't translate until you know the mindset of the person you're writing to. If you just write what you think is right, you don't hear the voice of your, you get the ear of your reader. You may write something that's perfect, but your reader won't listen. So you have to know America, and you have to know it from the inside.
You have to put on their shoes.
Yeah. You have to know those, to know those shoes. Yeah. I mean, like a lot of people, they mean very well. They try to get. I'm going to speak to you in English, and they learned English perfectly, but they didn't learn the spoken English. They didn't learn the mindset of the people speaking it. And you can't really learn another mindset. You've got to have it.
Right.
I mean, it's got to be natural to you. So I got that. But then by age 20. I realized, okay, got to find something.
Were you in school for something at that point?
I went to Colgate University. Colgate has a very
Colgate?
Colgate, yeah. Colgate had a very beautiful program at that time. It charted the development of science, art, music, literature, philosophy, showing how all the different ages. The art and the music and the philosophy and all things, and literature, they all were parallel.
Art, music, philosophy.
And everything else. Science.
But it's like the zeitgeist of the time, and it's all going in parallel, even though it's different fields.
So you learn to see structures and things. So it's like a very good thing when you're a young person looking for a path in life, so wait a second. But in that, and the idea of the wisdom, knowledge of the ages, quote unquote, and then it dawned on me, if a person's looking for life, you just don't want to just have knowledge. You want to have knowledge that you can apply. And there must be masters who've applied this. Now, the natural course of many people of that age was to go east. But I felt, listen, and I was not afraid to go east. But I felt, hey, you're born Jewish. You know what that is. There must be, in Judaism, also people who've done this.
East would mean India, Buddhism.
Hindu, Buddhism.
Right, all that.
All sorts of stuff. I mean, for that matter, Sufi Mandism, Islam. I knew about this stuff. Like Colgate, again, they were very careful, and there was a very good professor of religion who wrote textbooks on things, and he wrote textbooks by going there. So that was like
by putting on the shoes.
Yeah, he literally, or taking off the shoes, in many cases. So so I learned. I knew that. So and I remember him actually saying at one point, "Oh, you're looking for, you're Jewish." The words didn't mean anything to me at that time. He says, "Go see Chabad," and I just, it was registered somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind, but it pushed. Didn't I know what's Chabad? And it didn't think, but I just remember that he told me that, which I thought was cute.
Was he a Jewish professor?
No. He's a wise non-Jew, a very wise man.
And he told you to go see Chabad.
Yeah, no. He said, "Look, you're Jewish. If you're looking for serious religious things, you might like Chabad. Try it." But I didn't really go very far with him. It was him, and he was, just. And I don't like organized religion. Just sorry, even now.
What's that? I missed a part because he had given you the guidance.
No, yeah, but I don't. He just said, maybe if you're, you'll come up. Right. But didn't mean it there. He didn't give me an address of.
So what time did that go from there to?
No, well, so again, I grew up. I grew up really, Jewishly conscious, and I remember this was like a February, and I'm knee deep in snow in Colgate and Hamilton, New York. I mean, not Colgate's Hamilton. Then whether it's global warming or not, I don't know. But then there was snow up to here, literally from. And I remember walking through the snow on campus and saying, "Hey, my grandparents, meaning way back in Israel, they didn't go through snow. I think I should go back there." That was like a whole, like a real awareness. Hey,
so the decision to go to Chabad was not to
Chabad
to Israel, had nothing to do with
God
Chabad.
didn't enter the picture. Just he said Chabad. It didn't.
Oh, he didn't enter the picture.
It didn't
You were just going to
register.
Israel to go to Israel.
Yeah, I'm.
Let me go east, but not so far.
Before I go east, it's on the way.
Stop, yeah.
I'll stop and see. Does our people have an answer or not? Do we have a serious answer or not? So it was a very honest question.
Did you have a specific question? Were you looking for purpose, meaning, truth?
All the above and more. What
Was
did
there-
you say? In search of more?
Yes.
Yeah, all the above and more.
Was there specific angst? Was there something that was bugging you specifically?
No, but I just knew that everything. I mean, people who didn't live the 60s don't understand exactly what the experience was. But our parents, grandparents, all the generations before that were struggling. At different levels of struggling. I mean,
Right.
compared to Jews in Eastern Europe, they were, wow. But, they were struggling. They had to make it.
Right.
We had it made. I was, you grew up with 2 cars, 2 TVs, these good food, or you lived already. Again, and so, is there meaning, depth, and purpose to this? Now that I have
Right.
Before people had they couldn't, it's
Didn't have time to think about this.
Maslow.
Maslow's hierarchy.
So it's years. I haven't looked at the stuff, but we have that. We have that. Now let's get some meaning, depth, purpose in our lives, and that's what I was looking for. And it was a place where I could say, this is a path of life that I feel exactly this knowing heart things we spoke about before.
Yes.
Fully emotionally active, at the same time not just scatterbrained emotion. I mean, hippies, we had fully emotional expression, and it backfired really bad. Thank God, I wasn't suffering. I had no breakdown from it, but I had friends who did, and you did everything you wanted, and it just wasn't enough.
Right. And
so I said, there must be some path which has that. On the other hand, I said, I don't like organized religion. Even now, I don't daven with a minion ever. When I daven, you listen to a minion, you hear a thing. I daven, I'm talking to Hashem. I don't. Sometimes it's faster than the chazan, sometimes slower than the chazan. It doesn't, I don't like to be organized, not as rigid. That isn't my personality.
Meaning you're sitting with the minion, but you're not following
I'll
at the pace
have my own time, my own pace.
Right.
And so, I was not looking for organized religion at all, necessarily. But sooner or later, every place else in Israel, again, I've seen Koga University. I knew, this is from this level of culture. That's from that level of culture. What is genuinely Jewish? And it got to me that genuinely Jewish must be Torah observant people, because everybody else they're taking from someplace else. So what's genuinely Jewish? So where is genuinely Jewish experience? And
right. So drill into that a little bit. Meaning anyone else. So, for example, your life was influenced by being in America.
Like the typical American Jew goes to kibbutz. So I went to kibbutz. nice people. There was nothing genuinely Jewish about them. Good people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking anybody.
Right. But where are you saying they were taking from?
A little bit of socialism from Marx's say 1800s, and it's with a little bit of a variation from this. You saw that they weren't living Jewish lives; they were living culturally adapted lives.
Understood.
And I wanted to say, hey, what is Jewish? Because again, if I'm going to buy into this, like, I don't need to go to Israel to live a free capitalist experience or a socialist experience. I can do that any place else in the world. Like, I want something genuinely Jewish.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's an interesting observation. It makes a lot of sense, but I'm not sure many people think about it. But it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. That if I want something genuinely Jewish, I need to
see something that's really Jewish. So go.
Because we would do that with other stuff, right? If we were going to, I went to Cuba once, and I said, I don't want to go to the hotels. I want to see what it's like to
live in Cuba. You go to fields. So
I got an invite to a family for dinner. I saw what they live like. I said, in the home for a day, this is great. Yeah. No air conditioning, the way they eat. It was nice to see, but I felt like I experienced Cuba, not in a hotel in Cuba.
Exactly. Wherever you go, you tune in. You want to see what that is, so you do what you're there. So where are people living genuine Jewish lives? So
where did you go?
So first I tried a religious kibbutz. So it's a variation of the other one, a little bit more Jewish, like because they do keep this, but their lives are basically the same as the other people's lives. Then I'm going to Sfas. So I love Sfas. It's just a very enchanting city. What can I tell you? It's and I'm in the cemetery there, and this kid, it's a weird kid. Like he was a Baal Tshuva who hadn't really landed, if you know what I mean. Like, but good kid, but hadn't landed. And he tells me, you want to come to an interesting place? I'm studying in Kfar Chabad, and you can come for a Shabbos, and you'll have an interesting experience. And I said, oh. Again, we come from Lubavitcher stocks. So my father had books about Martin Buber's stories of Chassidim, Shlomo Carlebach's stories of Chassidim. So like we're in so I knew those things. Oh, I'd like to see what this animal is. And I get there. Oh, look, I don't know if this is genuinely Jewish, but it's not anything else that I've seen. This isn't at all.
Right, it didn't feel like it pulled from anything else that you knew.
Yeah, no, it was like its own unique. Again, I had studied. It didn't fit into the monograph, the charts of any of the societies. Oh, this is something worth looking at. But I don't want to say that because it looked it was very rigid. What can I tell you? No girls, no. So,
you were there just for Shabbos?
I was there just for Shabbos. But afterwards, going around things, I should, it came that, the people who are doing this Judaism thing are doing it from learning in this place called the yeshiva. Which yeshiva will take you? I remember walking into Yeshiva Sakotel. Might as well learn right next to the coast. So the holiest thing place. I got the Rosh Yeshiva. I could speak Hebrew. I'd been in Israel for 6 months, and from a kid's time, I was able to speak Hebrew. And he was very nice. Just listen. A, you're American. And B, you've never studied this stuff before. We really can't accept you. Our yeshiva is meant for.
There's a Chabad yeshiva in Jerusalem. usually?
No. This is yeshiva Kosovo.
Yeshiva. Oh, okay.
So, I walked in. Serious. It's really yeshiva. So he says, where should I go? He says, I don't know. Look, there's only two. He says, there's only two yeshivas for beginners that I know of. One is called the Diaspora Yeshiva. One is Chabad. So I said, the Diaspora Yeshiva, first what's in Jerusalem, and second, it sounded a little bit nicer because it's like, American style. So walked in there, and very nice. But the Rosh Yeshiva says, give your interpretation. He's sitting with the students. Says, what do you think about this pasuk? And somebody says this, somebody says this, and I say, I think I can interpret it this way. He says, you're good. You should stay here. You can. I said, no. If you think that this is good, I can't. I want to be taught not to teach. I don't need to give speeches now. I need to listen, or not. I can tune off, but I want to see something that you have to teach me. So went back to Kfar. This time somebody sat me down with a mimer, and it was very strange. It's like that this knowing heart idea. That on one hand, this is deep spiritual concepts that touch your heart. At the same time, it touches your mind. And I said, wow, there's something to look at. Whether I want this or not, I don't know. But it's something very serious to look at.
From the first time you learned to Mimer?
Yeah.
Remember which one it was?
Yeah. Kimanasa Shem Ludas from the previous Rebbe. And it says, Menasa Hashem is giving you nisyonos, tests, trials, ladas, to bring you to a sense of knowledge, just not with him, not just intellectual knowledge, but that kind of heartfelt knowledge with him. Do it all the way and see if it works. You know what I'm saying? Like I was not ready to buy into the trip. But I was, but I'm going to do it totally thoroughly. Otherwise, I'm, because I can't see if it's going to work unless I do it. So I sat in yeshiva, literally day and night for 6 weeks, without going anyplace else. I said, it's starting. I think this might be good enough. This might be a place to stay. Not sure yet. Like the people walked into yeshiva and bought a black hat afterwards. It took me probably close to a year before I bought my first black hat.
When someone would come to yeshiva like that in your situation, at what point in time would they begin to, let's say, keep Shabbos, keep kosher, or would that be instant?
Well, look, in Kfar Chabad, they wouldn't. Again, there are other yeshivas who have different approaches, but Kfar Chabad, that's what you did. It's like, I don't know if they would have kicked you out if you didn't keep Shabbos, but all the people who came there were temporarily buying into the trip. And in the yeshiva, the mood was, Kfar Chabad didn't have a separate Baal Tshuva yeshiva. You were in the yeshiva with everybody else. You couldn't really not keep Shabbos. It just wouldn't.
Right.
It just wouldn't fit. You couldn't fit there.
Right, you get on board with the program.
Like there were guys who left for Shabbos and didn't keep Shabbos, who left that Shabbos that they left, they didn't keep Shabbos. But most of the people like, they were in a serious experiment of, I'm going to do this or not, but while I'm here, I'm going to do it. That was the mode also of our generation at that time.
Were there a lot of Baal Tshuvas in the yeshiva when you came?
No, it was a small program. The American program was about 12, maybe 15 people. I was lucky because I knew Hebrew, and I didn't like. This is one of my pet peeves. I'll tell it in story form. I walked in yeshiva at age 18. Another guy walked in yeshiva at age 18. At age 20, and he walked in age 19. So age 20, I walked in. He was 19. 4 years later, I was teaching classes. He was still semi-beginning student. He says, Eli, how do you do it? We walked in more or less at the same time. Now you're a teacher, and I'm still. I say, I don't want to mention his name. Do you find learning difficult? Oh, it's very difficult. And I said, no, because you're not capable? No, I'm capable of learning, but the stuff is difficult. It's hard. I can learn. I'm intelligent, but the material is difficult. I said, no, the material is not difficult. The material is easy. He said, no, it's hard. I said, well, now you know what you're reading soon, and I'm teaching classes. If you think it's easy, if you realize that, like a lot of people, they don't want to really learn. They want to feel holy. They want to feel close to God. So, I'm doing God's Torah. I'm learning His words. I'm saying these holy things. So I've got an excuse. I'm done.
As opposed to truly understanding the concepts.
And what's more is a lot of times the yeshiva system actually supports that. They want you to feel right. That you have to be the student and taught at and not an independent.
Right. There's also a certain value in that approach. Meaning the approach of I'm doing something for holiness. It definitely seems to be a message there.
Hey, I agree, but I was like, everybody says Tillim, and I don't know anybody who understands what they're saying when they say Tillim. I mean, I can translate Tillim. If I sit down and translate, I can translate Tillim. But when I say Tillim, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying Tillim.
Right.
And that type of religious experience is very important and very valuable. But that isn't what learning is about.
Oh, that's what I was saying. There's a certain value in it. Good. Okay.
Yeah. And so a lot of people, that's what learning is about. And again, even the yeshivas themselves, to a certain extent, support it because that allows them, their hierarchy to stay in place.
A 23-year-old doesn't become a teacher.
No, but besides for that, well, sometimes they do. But it's all within the idea of I'm teaching you instead of we're learning together.
Understood.
That's a very fundamental thing. I mean, the guy who actually changed me that way, Rav Yankel Katz, the Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. He saw you wanted to learn. I'll make a class for you, and he put together a bunch of people all on this beginner but not beginner level. Wanting to beginners because they haven't learned before, but able to learn level. And he made a class for us, and Baruch Hashem, every one of the guys in that class, didn't become a second class Baal Tshuva. They became a student.
Understood.
A full-fledged member of the community.
Did most people who were in that yeshiva who were coming closer, were they coming closer to Judaism for the same reasons you were, or was their approach completely different?
Look, everybody was searching at that. That was the generation.
That was the zeitgeist. That was what the music was about. The arts.
The 60s, early 70s. People were searching. But but each person's different, and each person's own motivations were different. But anyway, so I'm in yeshiva, I'm learning, and everybody's talking Rebbe. And I remember this is the first time. There's one guy in yeshiva. He was English. Always wore a suit. Very. So he'd been there a little bit longer than most of the other guys, and he was like, all proper. It's like, so Shlomo, what do you do after yeshiva? In yeshiva, they don't give you degrees. We're not going to become rabbis. At least I had no thought of that at that time. So what do you do afterwards? How long are you going to stay here? And he tells me, whatever the Rebbe says. And I'm floored. What do you mean? You're a thinking person. You're an adult.
I was just stay in the garage downstairs until they come.
And you didn't grow up in this. I mean, if somebody tells you, if somebody grew up in this, I understand that that's what they're supposed to. It's the parents told them to do, so you'll do what the Rebbe said. But you didn't grow up. You're not going to make your own decision? No, I'm going to do what the Rebbe says. And it was just like, huh? It was that the other people, the rabbis were telling you that, the rabbis, that they're paid to do that job. He wasn't paid to say that.
Right.
This was his natural reaction, and coming from the outside, and so it's like, oh wow, got to.
You're blocking the camera. Sit on the floor.
Yeah. So so after a year and a half of these people saying Rebbe, 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 and yet they weren't really living with the Rebbe because they were in Eretz Yisrael, and it wasn't the same experience. So wait a second, I'm not stuck here. I'm an American. I'm going to the Rebbe.
Okay.
And so that was, that was the biggest decision. I thank God for that decision every moment.
How long after coming to
A year and a half.
Yeshiva? Got it.
And by that time, I was able to learn in yeshiva. I was able to learn independently. I walked into yeshiva, and they said, "You go to Hadar Torah." I said, "No." The yeshiva in Chabad said, "I belong here. Test me." And the guy and Rabbi Mentorship tests me. I said, "Oh yeah, you belong here."
In 770.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You belong here. Why not? Why should you go there? You can learn.
That's cool.
And so, I started to learn. And he was a very special guy for me. Like when you see a person who lives his talk. I was going to tell you, Katz had that same, and Eretz had that, Mendak had that. These were people who, I'm talking about just, they were, Chassidim. I'm talking just in the realm of Gemara. They loved to learn, and they spent their days learning. That was such a very powerful experience, that a person really loves to have his mind programmed by God. And he's so into it and able to explain it to you also and to teach you. And so you learn again the content of what he's teaching, which is significant, because then you can do it on your own. But much more, you learn the person, and you learn, wow.
Get to know the person.
Yeah, but he's a mentor just by being who
Right.
he is.
Right, just by being.
Yes.
His presence changes you. Experiencing the person.
You're living with him. You see the way he teaches, the way he reacts, the way what he cares. He teaches, and so and then see this. I learned by Rabbi Yoel. Yoel was an awesome experience. Remember the second class.
Can you speak about him a little bit? Because I've heard his name a lot growing up, but I didn't really hear things about him until he passed. It seems a lot of people talk about someone after they die.
Now, first of all,
I'm sure a lot of people spoke about him when he was alive as well. It's just a tendency to really hear about someone after they die.
Look,
Just sit here. It's distracting.
Rabbi Yoel was a unique person. I was amazed. Besides, I'm going to take way afterwards. I would come back to Crown Heights visiting for Shabbos. Rabbi Yoel would give a class every Shabbos morning. 15, 20 people showed up. I'm talking about after Gimel Tammuz, after they passed away.
Right.
He'd give a class every Shabbos morning. 15, 20 people showed up. I was just amazed. Hey, this is Rabbi Yoel, the guy who knows, but really knows. And he's teaching and giving of himself. Really, to teach you, and he's into it to you as his students. And there are only 15, 20 people who are showing up. Where's Lubavitch? I was just like, I didn't understand it. Still don't understand it. No, but again, classic. How have you all taught? Remember the first shiur I heard, he just kind of read the things without too much, explanation. Explained here, explained there, but kind of glossed over it.
Meaning, assuming people understood,
or just to say hello to people,
Yes.
whatever. He was second class. He starts, reads again a little bit, then says, "Do you understand what he's saying here?" Now, he was actually trying to get the students involved. I'm an impatient person. Tell me what you want to teach.
Right.
And no, he starts asking questions, which just to get your mind working. Now, I learned a mimer which had taught that same subject matter that morning. So I say over what that other mimer said, and he says, that's interesting, but take that line of thought one step further. Where does it go from here? And he gives several examples. So I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. He says, okay. Anybody else have any explanations? And a couple other people, they were smart enough. No, he's just playing with us. But the guys in the class. So some of them obviously, he wants to play. Some will play with him. Some of them really didn't have any idea what he was talking about anyway. But after 15, 20 minutes, I'm getting very frustrated. Like, if you're supposed to be teaching, say something already. He's just really wanting to get the students to think. But I'm getting very upset. So I go back and go to the study hall, or out of the classroom, go to the study hall, which had the book that I was reading. I said, see, this is exactly what you said. Here's the question that you asked. Here's the mimer, which says exactly that. He says, yeah, but what about, I said, followed up the same two questions. He says, well, I can't. Says, but this is what the mimer says. He says, the mimer knows what it's talking about. Do you know what the mimer is talking about? And as I say in Hebrew, hasimon nafal. I started, the idea is that you should be able to really not just parrot back the words, but understand them, take them in your own language, be able to put it into practice. Oh, this is a teacher. And he was amazing. And it's very interesting also.
So were they your two main teachers, Mendel Fuchsfass and?
No, well, in Gemara, Mendel, I got so much from him. And I would consider, if I have to say who taught me how in Nigla, Reb Mendel. For Chassidus, Rabbi Eli taught, Mendel was not a teacher intellectually. He was an applied knowledge person. He was not a classic Mendel story. Well, I was working in Cleveland for 2 years as a shliach, before I got married. Shidduch were moving faster. Went out to Cleveland, Cleveland for shlichus. So Mendel used to come to Cleveland to raise money for Russian Jews for about 2 weeks. My job was to drive him around, which was great because I get to get to speak to Mendel and talk about him. I was going to tell you another story from that, but one beautiful story which everybody loves, so I'll continue with that first. I'm sitting with Mendel and Shmuel David Reichik. I'm driving them. So Mendel goes to Shmuel David. No, Shmuel David. Chazon Maimer. This is like 7:30 in the morning. Shmuel David just got up. I don't have a Maimer. No, say a sicha. I don't have a sicha. So Mendel goes, so say the 12 psukim. And these two bearded, Chassidic mentors of the highest quality are sitting saying, Shema, Shema, Yisrael, because they didn't want to be a moment without something Torah happening in their lives. And that's just a little bit of who these guys were. But anyway, Mendel and learning.
You were going to say a second story.
Yeah, this is the second story.
Okay.
We're learning. He tells me. So we're walking on Shabbos to shul, and he didn't walk well at that level. Well, he's already older. The Chabad house was a good mile, at least, from where we're staying. So I'm walking shul very slowly. So, ask me something. Like he wants to talk.
Right.
He's asking me, please. So I'm not embarrassed at all. I says, Mendel, what was it like in the camps in Siberia? He goes, Yemei Or, days of light. I go, what do you mean days of light? He says, my whole life, I've always had a conflict between Gashmis and Ruchnis, spiritual and physical. There, I had no conflict. So I said, look, Mendel, I understood. You didn't have any Gashmis, you didn't have anything physical for sure. But what kind of spiritual did you have? I said, what do you mean, what kind of spiritual? All I did the whole day was learn and daven. He says, what do you mean? Well, yeah, of course I had to work and this, but that was not really real. And I had plenty of time to learn and daven. So I said, no, davening, I understand. You probably, you knew davening by heart. But learning, the Russians gave you books. Because he wasn't known as a guy who had,
right.
There's some people say he actually did have, this is a story he told me. He says, I'll tell you how I learned. His brother, Handel Liebman, was a painter. Even different last names, just because of passports. Handel would paint. He says, I'm not painting the past. I'm living it. I see the scene that I'm painting is alive, vivid in my eyes. And I was curious because Mendel says, here's how I learned. I picture the classroom that I'm sitting in. Here's my friend Yankel to my right. Meisha is to my left. Chaim is in front of me. The teacher, Rav Zalman the Geller, is teaching. I can hear his voice to the point where I can actually hear it. And he's saying, Shnayim ochazim v'talis, two people holding on to a garment. And he's playing I'm playing the whole mission in my heart, in my mind, because I've seen it, living it. I hear that Mishnah. Then for a moment, now that I've heard a whole Mishnah, says, okay, now I remember that Mishnah, so close the picture. I've got to memorize that Mishnah because that's all I've got. I learned that Mishnah. So I say that Mishnah over and over again until I've got it. And then go back to the picture. See the picture playing. Until this is what Solomon the Geller says the next Mishnah. I got that Mishnah. And remember, that's how I learned. Those were the Yemei Or, the study that I had. So when you learn that way, you're a very special person. So that was intellectually, I don't know how much I got from Mendel, but the living approach I got from him. A lot of that, real.
Very special.
Yeah, and what's so beautiful is that he wanted to give it. Like he didn't feel comfortable unless he was teaching somebody that way. Yeah.
How did you go from there to the work you're doing today, translating and teaching and writing?
I knew English. I went to Colgate University. Nobody in Lubavitcher at that time could. I mean, really, there were very few people who were able to express themselves coherently in the English language at that time. I mean, you had a Zalman Posner and Emmanuel Shochet, but and there were a couple. But I remember, this is like a family story. I brought, the Rebbe would give out communal letters for every Yontif, so I brought them home. I brought the English translations home. My aunt looks at them. My aunt, she's Lubavitch from Borisov, but not really, if you know what I'm saying, because she hasn't been keeping the mitzvahs at all, but she's like that mentality.
Right.
And she says, this Rebbe of yours, he's not intelligent. He can't even construct a single sentence. The long, incoherent. The English is obviously taken from a thesaurus. You call that a Rebbe? You call that a teacher? So the next Yontif, I brought her a Yiddish letter. She says, your Rebbe's a genius. The letter is beautiful. Such depth to it. Simplicity at the same time to this. But he still doesn't understand as a teacher. This is why. He says, why can't he get a good translator? And he says, you know what? You're going to grow up, you're going to be his translator. Okay. I just listened. I didn't think about it. It's one of these, have something, hits you that.
Yes.
And it turned out she was right. Because, again, when you know both worlds and you live comfortably in both of them, then you can translate. So it's not even an effort.
So who are you speaking to? Who are you writing to? What type of person?
That's very well. See, the Rebbe spoke to everybody, and
I'm saying in your mind, when you say living in both worlds, who are you speaking to?
I'm trying to speak to people in both worlds. In other words, because today, and this is one of the real problems in the Lubavitcher educational system, is that English is everybody's mama lashon today. And Lubavitch doesn't recognize it yet. I mean, people like Rosh Yeshivas, talking about, let's look in the Gemara, they won't let you bring an art school to yeshiva. Or they say, no, you've got to learn the original. If you don't learn the original, you never learn the original. I tell them, no, it's a classic story of a Chassidic. He says, the Alter Rebbe wanted to give him everything he knew as a gift. And so he said, no, I want to learn. I want to work myself to get to that. And then afterwards, he said, that was pretty stupid of me. He didn't say it that bluntly, but I could have taken what he gave me and then worked hard on that. Right. With that. Same thing. Give the student this tool. He speaks English. Let him read it in the art school, and then he'll see it in the inside. He'll know how to do it. And the same thing goes, he'll see this, and to a certain extent, even more so, because this is supposed to hit home. It's the whole point of Chassidus is not just to give the intellectual knowledge. 100%. It's supposed to change.
So you see yourself as speaking oftentimes to
I see myself as speaking to everybody. In other words, if I can write in clear English with a little bit of impact, hopefully, they're much better writers than I am, really. But I write straightforward, and I understand what I'm saying, and I really mean that I want you to take it also. And if you write that way, everybody, you don't use high. I try not to use fancy words. Occasionally, try as short sentences as possible. Make it easy reading, as best as possible. And sometimes, the Rebbe uses a 100-word sentence, and I've broken it down to 330s. I think it's pretty good, but 30-word sentence is also not so easy. But if you write straightforwardly, you write clear, something intelligible, everyone can learn it. You just have to know but you have to know everyone. So you go, this won't sit well by that person. So you got to structure a little bit that way. This won't sit by that. Not you structure, you structure that way, and you find the medium where you're true to the Rebbe. On the other hand, you're speaking to your audience.
What is How long have you been doing this? When did you start translating?
Look, Sikhs in English started in Tafshin Lamed Ches, that's 1978. 1978 or yeah. No, yeah. What is it? No, it wasn't Lamed. Yeah, it was Lamed Ches. It was 1978. But at that time, there were enough people coming into Lubavitch who didn't understand what the Rebbe said and got very tired of just standing there by Farbrengen, understanding that something big has happened, but without it being able to understand it. So the weekday Farbrengen used to have people do simultaneous translations.
Right.
But Shabbos, you couldn't have that. And even after the simultaneous translations, they wanted to actually be able to read what it had. So a bunch of guys got together and made Sikhs in English. I was an after choice for, I was actually coming from Cleveland at that time just getting married.
So you were part of the original group?
The second stage of the original group. I mean, like there's some other there were guys who were before me, but they really weren't able to do it. And I was coming back from Shlichus, just getting married, needed something to do, and the job was waiting for me. I said, "Oh, you're going to do it." So I said, "Yeah."
So you've been doing this for 45 years?
Basically.
What does an average day look like?
Look, in those 45 years, I also did other stuff. I mean, everybody knows, most people in Lubavitch refer to me as, "Oh, I know your Rambams." It's one of the things that really bothers me. Like, Baruch Hashem, my Rambam is an amazing thing. Like, I've done the whole Rambam is like, wow. I'm just amazed that I was given the schus to do that. But, people, it's strange how Lubavitchers, again, I'm identified. You say, Eli Touger, you translate Sikhs. Constantly, the people will walk up to me and say, "Oh, I know your Rambam." And what about the Sikhs? Really, because this is really, it really bothers me that people don't, and I show this to a bunch of people, and oh, gee, they don't really, until they see it actually and sit down with it. Oh, it's for the Baal Teshuvas, it's not for me. No, you read English easier than you read Hebrew or Yiddish. The explanations, you're taught this Sikha. You definitely don't read those footnotes easily, no matter what language they're in. No matter how, most Lubavitchers skip the footnotes.
Right.
And they're deep, they're good, they're powerful.
They're there for a reason.
The Rebbe put them there. And, on the contrary, to a certain extent, that's what's really the Rebbe's godless. And I suppose the deeper footnotes are really, a lot of the texts the Rebbe actually didn't write. Footnotes, most of them are primarily his work. Yeah. The text was, taken from the Sikha, but written over by different people. The structure of the text is, then it was edited by the Rebbe, how much editing, some more, some less, back and forth. But the footnotes were, the long explanatory footnotes are almost all just the Rebbe's work. And so that's where you see the Rebbe as Rebbe. And you see the Rebbe's godless, the Rebbe's greatness as a Torah thinker.
So what your hope is that for the average Lubavitcher, recognizing that English is the first language. And I've made this observation. I grew up, I said my parents didn't speak Yiddish or Hebrew. So I didn't have any of that at home.
And they didn't either. And I feel so sorry for them. I remember some, I gave the sikha to an editor, a proofreader from Lubavitch. I have to thank you, Rabbi. This is the first time that I've been in Lubavitch 30 years. And this is the first time I've read a sikha from cover to cover and understanding it.
Right.
And I cried for that lady. I mean, that's hurt so much. And I also how could you do that? I couldn't do it. I couldn't be in a movement without knowing the inside of it. And these people, they make such a sacrifice to do it. And, Baruch Hashem, now somebody finally gave them something that they can, tune into what they've been doing their whole lives.
Right. I don't know if you've heard this, but, I've shared at various times about Chassidic in English, but at some point in time, for what it's worth, it was on a psychedelic journey as someone who was in the 60s. I'm sure you're familiar with this concept, and with familiar that sometimes when people go to those places, which today people do it for different reasons than in the 60s, that?
Yeah,
in the 60s it was a search. Today it's for trauma, primarily. Like when people in pain, people really suffering, and they say, hey, maybe there's another way out. That's at least what I find anecdotally from people I speak to today who do it, and people I speak to from the past who are on that search. In any case, on one such journey, there was this observation that there's this figure in my life. At this point in time, I wasn't very frum. I'm not very frum today. I don't like that word, but I wasn't practicing much. The thought that came to me was that there's a figure in my life who's quite important to my life. I grew up in Crown Heights. I went to the yeshiva system, and I don't really know who he is. Right? There's this Rebbe. I was involved with Chabad houses. I helped out. I had a positive view of the Rebbe generally. I didn't. That's what I was told too, and he seemed like a nice man.
He was a very nice man. Seriously, like he made everybody feel happy, comfortable.
Yeah, but I said, but how do I know who he is? Oh, everything I know from other people. So it's all filtered through filters. I heard this story and this teaching and this thing, and yeah, I'd learned some stuff from the past, but even that was taught to me in some way. So I concluded that the only way to understand who he is by learning his stuff. That would be the only way. I couldn't read stories. I couldn't even read these biographies that people wrote. There was a thought in my head at the time that maybe if I read Rav Adin Steinsaltz and his a book on the Rebbe, like maybe we can capture something that wouldn't be lost. But even that wouldn't be the same thing as learning in the original. So.
Excuse me, sorry for interrupting, but I write this all the time. When God gives the Torah, what's the first word of the Ten Commandments? Anochi. Ona nafshi kesavis yavis. I wrote down and gave over myself, my soul. That's Likutei Sichos. The Rebbe's Ona nafshi. I wrote down and gave over myself, my soul.
Is it more so the Sichos than my marm?
Different. You're in the middle of the story. We'll get there.
So short time after that, I got an email. I guess it was an email blast about this selections in the Likutei Sichos. So I purchased it. It sat there for a while, but there was this thought still playing in my head that at some point I should open it up. And my worldview at the time was really focused on, I was in recovery from addiction for a long time. I'd begun the psychedelic path in order to heal from anxiety, heal from depression is a strong word, but some mild form of definitely general malaise and negativity around the world. And so I picked it up with that lens, right? That's why I was viewing the world, everything through therapy, and especially in the first sichos about Bereshis and going through it. I probably went through that twice, cover to cover, at least most of it. Maybe some of the sichos were a little more dense. And during, I was like, wow, there's like a treasure trove of personal development insights in this, ways of viewing the world. I remember one of the first sichos was about darkness and converting darkness into light. And I was like, wow, how did I miss this? How did I miss some of these concepts? And the deeper the darkness, the more light you can pull out, which that was the way I was viewing addiction at the time.
And to get the light from the darkness itself.
Exactly. That it's a much higher form of light.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of the world is light in itself. That the light was created first, light was created as meaning. So if we can go through our experiences and find the light in there, then that's the purpose of life. And I said, oh, neat. Like there was a lot of things that were connecting very deeply for me. And anyway, I started talking about it. I started sharing. But what it did for me, specifically the selections of Sichos, which is why maybe in some way this was kind of saying a thank you to you and also to hear from you, was having it side by side in that way. I've seen the Likutei Sichos before translated, and I read it, but I'm still getting someone else's words, which is nice, but it's not the original. What I like about the side-by-side is I'll always end the sikha by reading it once in the original. Like at the end, I'll be able to read it in the original and understand.
Back and forth, but
the first time I'll have to go back and forth. I'll have to go through and I'll need the translations and I'll need the help. Sometimes I'll just read.
Yeah, well, by the time you finish,
I'll read the whole thing in English first. Sometimes if it's like this one's a little complicated, I'll read the whole thing in English or paragraph by paragraph, and then I'll go back to the original. But at the end, I want to be able to get through it in the original, like in the original language, and understand it from there with the translations. And the back and forth helps to do it in that way. And I felt an appreciation, understanding, and dare I say, a knowledge of the Rebbe through this. I felt like I was picking up aspects of his personality.
I wrote down and gave over myself, my soul. That's the Rebbe put. This is his life work.
So back to my question about sichos versus maimarim.
Look, if you look, I think it's the. I forget which one, but in either Shmos or Vayikra, we actually speak about that in the introduction. Memorim, the Rebbe wasn't in this world. He literally held onto the table when he said a mimer. He wasn't speaking his normal tone.
He was more channeled then.
I'll tell you a story. The Chassidic said a mimer once. Then there was a debate about what the meaning of a certain paragraph in the mimer. And Rav Eli Touger said one thing. Chassidim took Rav Eli Touger's explanation and took it back to some Chassidic. Some said, no, that's not quite right. He explains this. And Rav Eli Touger says, no, I'm right. When the Tzemach Tzedek says a mimer, Shechina medaberes mitak rona, the divine presence is speaking from his throat. It's not his words speaking. This is Shechina. This is Hashem's channeling through the Rebbe. Well, afterwards, he and I, we can talk together. Now, Hasidim, don't exactly, those people who really tune into Rebbe as like whatever, don't like that story so much from Hillel, or they don't like Hillel's conception. But that idea of a mimer being Shechina medaberes, the divine presence is speaking, you felt that. When the Rebbe said a mimer, he wasn't there, he was there.
Right.
And when he says a sikha, he was here, tuning into you.
Right, this is him, his ideas, his personality, his concepts.
And to a certain extent, that goal, which we spoke before, about putting it in language that you understand, that comes naturally to you, comes out much more in sichos than in memorim. Because just like the Rebbe, when he said the mimer was up there, to learn a mimer, you've also got to put yourself a little bit up there, which is okay.
Right.
Every once in a while, it's good to be up there. But if you want to really apply it, you've got to sichos, and the deepest gems of the Rebbe's Haskalah, the Rebbe's quote, they're in sichos, not memorim. Rabbi Eli would always say that.
I felt sometimes that it was fun for him. Is that too far to say? It feels like there's a fun, there's a playful energy sometimes.
Pleasure.
Okay, good, better word. Yes.
Pleasure. Fun it's a disgusting American word.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but there's a
pleasure.
Maybe play is a better word. That there was a child in a sandbox tinkering. Is that, you would say, too bold to say?
The ultimate goal is, it says that God spends 3 hours a day sporting with the Leviathan. I don't know.
God spends 3 hours a day
sporting. Sachek.
Okay.
Sporting. That's with the Leviathan. In other words, just like you play with your pet dog.
Yes.
God sports with the Leviathan. Now, Chassidus explains that this means the deeper aspects of Torah knowledge. that's play in that sense of sporting with Leviathan. And the Rebbe did that a lot of times in Sichos. Like you said.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. You reacted to the word fun specifically, but that's what I meant. I meant that it was like a playful,
but pleasurable, like the real kind of meat, like you could see I remember some of the Sichos. There was such a broad smile on his face when he was saying them. I have one image in my mind, perfectly. The lighting, some 70, they had colored windows. So it really looked, at one point, I remember the way the rays of sun were coming through those windows. It was like different colored lights shining at the Rebbe at the same time. And he was like, with a broad smile saying the Sikha. It just, pictures imprinted in my mind because he was saying the deepest stuff with the greatest pleasure. And you saw this man at home and welcome you to join him in that experience.
Right. It was actually a sikha. I'll see if I can remember parts of it, where I felt that energy coming through. He was talking about the first Rashi.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the sikha, he said that he did a kind of play on words that kayach maisav higad la'amai, right? That the strength of his actions, he said to his nations. And he's like, but he also transmitted to it. Like he also gave us the power. His kayach, he translated to us. Like, that's how we can kind of put a bow on the whole thing. I remember learning that. It felt to me like he was having, like he was enjoying that.
Yeah. Again, look, any teacher, the most satisfying experience for a teacher is that he gives something to his students and the students get it. And I think the Rebbe knew when he said it and was written up after. It's like, this is a pearl. They're gonna get this one.
I got it.
To a certain, all of them were like that, but some stand out as even more.
Right, there are different ones where I felt his relentlessness, his boldness, his like I feel like I'm connecting to a person, to a personality through it. And that was the original intent behind it. So I guess it would make sense that eventually it would lead to that.
And teach you to model it.
Model what?
All the energy,
all the qualities. Yes,
you take out and apply.
Right. Have you, as doing this for so many years, can you see where something is going now? Meaning if you came across something new or something you hadn't picked up in a long time, so it wasn't coming from memory, but just how he thinks, how he would see a situation, how he would look at something. Do you feel?
Look, we're not Rebbes. And, and what was unique about the Rebbe is that he was totally improbable. Like he would, he always walked the new path. Yeah, so you couldn't predict what the Rebbe would say.
So he was unpredictable.
Oh, tremendously so. That said, after living with him for so many years, you get some sort of feeling where he's going. And that's the challenge.
Got it. So where to from here? Where does it go? I mean, when you're doing this kind of work for a long time, is there still excitement? Is there still?
Oh, there's no way you can open these books without excitement. If you don't feel excitement, get another job. Drive a cab.
But it still stays interesting. I'm sure at this point you've gone through it.
Awesome. I mean, first of all, every day I'm learning new stuff. I mean, even if I've gone over it before, when you have to write it, and going through the experience of those in-out three changes of clothing when writing it, so you're getting it, you've really got to learn, and when you learn this stuff, it's new every moment. It really is. We spoke before. I would never. I'm not going to retire. I love this. This is what I would. If you weren't paying me, I'd still do the same thing. But it's also nice to be paid.
And with Sikhs in English, I mean, your name is still on a lot of Sikhs in English.
Yeah.
Is there a whole team? I mean, is it possible to get to the scope of...
Look, one of the things very important for every writer, no matter how much you try yourself, you've got to get your own subjectivity out of the work. And that's, I'll tell you two stories about where I was taught to write. Both of them, the first one was from Ari Kaplan over Shalom. Maznayim, actually, they published my Rambam, but I originally took another book to them, way before I did Rambam with them and other stuff. But so at that point, Ari Kaplan was still alive. The people in Maznayim don't read English. At that point, they were one of the major Jewish, still are to a certain extent. At that point, they were one of the major Jewish English publishers. But the people running the business didn't speak English. They just knew that Ari Kaplan had a good knack, and they just said, "Go do what you want." And the guy was brilliant and did what he wanted. And so, he said, "Take your book to him." So I took the manuscript to him. He looks it over. He says,
"Manuscript of?"
This was Rabbi Zevin Sipur Chassidim, which Uri Kaplan later did, and he did a great job of it, probably better than I would have done. But anyway, so I took it to him. He goes, "If you're telling the story, you're a Lubavitcher, yeah. And so if you're telling the story at a Lubavitcher Kumsitz for college students, would you tell it the way you wrote it? Because then people were still writing in that highfalutin." Emanuel Schochet's wife once looked at one of his works and says, "Emanuel, du schreibst nicht in English, du schreibst Halbdeutsch. You're not writing English, you're writing High Dutch." High German.
Yeah.
In other words, people used to write that way. And so he says, and I was trying to write that way. And so he says, "No, I speak in normal, ordinary language people understand. So why don't you write that way?" That was the first major lesson in writing.
Ari Kaplan.
Yeah. Second one was from an editor when I was just starting to do it professionally in Eretz Yisrael. Like I'd worked with Lubavitch before, but now I was really, I realized I had to make a living in my life, so I wanted to, so I did it professionally. So I had this editor in Eretz Yisrael, David Grossman. He's now also an Olam Emes. And I give my work to David. David says, "Eli, I don't understand what you wrote." I said, "David, it's so clear." "Eli, I don't understand what you wrote." He says, "David," he says, "Eli, calm down. Listen, you may have 10 IQ points on me. He probably had 10 on me, but you may have 10 IQ points on me, but only 10. I'm smart. And I'm reading your work patiently because you're paying me. If I tell you I don't understand, that means that 80% of your readers also won't understand. So you've got to change it." And I said, "Oh, listen to feedback. Get your own subjectivity out of this. We have 6 to 7 eyes go over Lukutzichus before it goes out. That was Rabbi Yonah Afson's, unique thing. Get the full team behind it. And it starts out like a lot of I do the basic work, but then Shalom Ber Weinberg goes over it. Shalom Ber is a very solid guy. He knows, he reads, he understands, he fixes here and fixes there. Then there's a guy, Shalom Zirkin. You know the Zirkins in Cleveland Heights, right? Yeah.
Not very well. By name, by face,
but they're like a very studied family, and his mother is a grown-up from Australia. So they're two. He's just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And he checks it over, reads every one of the footnotes, tears my work apart, saying, you missed the Rebbe's point here, you haven't got there. And I go back because you show him, it can go this way. We work out a thing back and forth. But he's an immense contribution. Then I have 2 editors, non-Lubavitchers, precisely for that reason.
Right.
So that I want to make sure that somebody who doesn't, and then we have a proofreader, readers, etc. So 7 eyes go through. Also have to mention, it's very important. Like you said, the layout helps. We have a guy at your Turner spends days literally making sure that everything looks nice, that the Hebrew and English match.
Yes. It's hard to do.
Impossible to do. Like Spotlight Design, they gave us the basic format. But I said no, the English and Hebrew should match up. It's impossible. So our guy will do it. He says, no, he can't do it. And Itcher does it. But he spends lots of hours, and he works very hard. And, people don't, he's the last name on the list. But you have to give him a lot of credit because that ability, like you said, to go back and forth easily is because of him. And he really deserves all the credit in the world for that. Because, and Spotlight also deserves because that idea of the format is theirs. Having all these people in the game is so very important. Like you can't think of it as your own work.
It's a team sport.
Oh, yeah, but all the way. So like I have to carry the ball, but I'm carrying the ball with the whole team behind me, and sometimes the whole team leading me.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's the process is also like it teaches you a lot to be Chassidic because you lose your own ego in this.
If you had to say a few words about the Rebbe as teacher, as scholar, as thinker, what would you say?
I'll tell you a story. Seen by Rabbi Eli. And Rabbi Eli was also like a iconoclast as a person. So he goes, how many Rebbes do you have? He's speaking to a bunch of Lubavitcher Rebbe who are trying to get heated up to become, Rebbe followers and they're learning by Rabbi Eli. So he goes, how many Rebbes do you have? And any Chassidic movement, you have at least most Chassidic movements, you have one Rebbe. The idea of having 2 or 3 Rebbes doesn't go in most Chassidic movements. So didn't understand Rabbi Eli's question, what he says. He says, let me explain to you my question. When the Rebbe says a mimer, you're amazed because it's like the deepest Chassidus you ever heard. Yeah. But when he translates that mimer into a sikha, isn't it a little bit different? Yeah. Because he's now saying, like we said before, on a more relaxed, more applied dimension. See, now I have 2 Rebbes. And when he starts to take a passage from the Talmud and explain it with a unique approach that no one ever heard before. I mean, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was the greatest Gaon of all times. And he used to speak to the Rebbe and he'd write back and forth to the Rebbe with the greatest kavod one to the other. So see, now you have a 3rd Rebbe, this great Gaon in Nigla. And when he speaks about the situation in Eretz Yisrael, and you see he's dissecting the political situation in a way which nobody has. I got a 4th Rebbe. And he speaks about prayer in the schools in the States, dealing with the situation in American society that, hey, people have to realize what's happening. Like way before people, we got where we are now, the Rebbe was saying, we don't want to live in a jungle. And I got a 6th Rebbe. And you need a bracha for your health, for your parnasa. You got a 7th Rebbe. How many Rebbes do you have? He says, no, this one Rebbe. All of this is one approach. Emes havaya la'olam, the truth of God coming to the world. And the Rebbe takes that essential truth, puts it into every one of these avenues and many others, gives them all that essential awareness of God. That's the Rebbe.
Let's speak a little bit about current events.
Okay.
In terms of Israel, there's a lot going on. There was obviously, like you mentioned, a lot of warnings from the Rebbe about things like university, other concerns. Do you have a sense of the way the Rebbe would be viewing our current reality, our current world?
It's hard to say, like I said, because the Rebbe was so original. And to a certain extent, like, I really, I heard the Rebbe cry about the situation in Eretz Yisrael. Mi Yehudi, the giving back land. When he's, then where the government is today, the two worlds away. Even the most left wing at that time isn't where we are today, and his disappointment with people. I mean, Arik Sharon, that originally loved him, gave him so much energy, saved his life, then was so disappointed he would never let him back into Yechidus.
The Rebbe was disappointed.
The Rebbe was disappointed, wouldn't let him back in.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
At what point?
After he started with disengagement, and even before then.
But disengagement was early
When
2000s.
we pulled out of Gaza and pulled it.
Right. But I'm saying in terms of the Rebbe getting disappointed.
So the Rebbe was being disappointed before that. But, then that was, I think, the crusher.
Right.
And he wanted to come in afterwards, for a photo app, whatever, Rebbe wouldn't let him back in.
Yeah.
In the 90s, I put out a book, Eyes Upon the Land, which is, we took what the Rebbe said before and wrote about it. And I felt uncomfortable then. And when they now Six Things put out a new book,
Make Peace.
Yeah, Make Peace, which is a pretty good book. I mean,
I'm about halfway through it, yeah.
And I haven't read the whole book, honestly, but but it's a nice book. But they asked me to write that first, because Shmuel is very, he doesn't want, you're writing the book. I'm not going to take anything away from you, and I'm too busy with the other stuff we're doing. I'm just not going to, and not get it right. But besides for that, I didn't want to write the book because the Rebbe was so unpredictable, and it's such a complex situation. What do you do? In other words, do you sacrifice hostages' lives? I mean, it's very clear that certain things, the whole idea of looking back to America, looking back, the Rebbe hated that. And that clearly, that idea of not being your own policymaker. Like the Rebbe would obviously speak against that. But what really should be done you have to be ready for that. I'll give you certain examples. Settling Yehuda V'Shomrim, the West Bank.
Yeah.
Rebbe spoke about it all the time. Countless Lubavitcher said, let's make a Lubavitch settlement in the West Bank. Quite natural. The Rebbe
Right.
The Rebbe vetoed it every time. He says, until there's a firm, never going back decision that this is going to be there and that there's going to be absolute safety for people there, no, I can't tell my people to go there. Individuals that I've sent and gave brachas for, but as a Lubavitch settlement, no, he was not in favor. So that's in other words, you think classically,
right.
So what do you to say that this is what the Rebbe would do? I don't know what the Rebbe would do, and I said there's so many factors here. It's very hard. And this is, like the Rebbe says something 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You could apply it to now? The situation has changed some. Globally, the basic global, equations are still there. And the guidance is clear. But the particular judgment of situation, you have to, the Rebbe was unpredictable. And he rarely changed his mind. Almost never. But in each situation, he would apply himself very differently. And the same answer, two people with the same problem sometimes get two different answers. Because each person and each situation is different. So, these people say, this is what the Rebbe would do. Oh, yeah? Who appointed you to say?
Right, so you feel that taking that approach could be a little strong. Obviously, there were certain things that were rules of thumb, like not giving away land.
And again, taking your own, we're determining our destiny, not America. Clear. That we have to be...
Bring the microphone just a drop closer to you.
Yeah. We have to determine our own destiny. Stand up. One of the phrases that I would continually repeat was, Bolichas and komamios. I'm going to walk you upright to your land. That I was very into the upright. Standing proud with your own identity, who you are, or you make your own decisions. That was core by the Rebbe. And I think that's also very good advice to individuals on a very personal level. But it was definitely the global advice. For Eretz Yisrael, we have to start looking at, determine our own priorities in the context of our own priority.
How about what's going on in America? Did Rebbe ever get involved politically? I know he made comments oftentimes, but
the Rebbe was very careful not to back any particular party. I remember this one classic thing. There was a frum lady who was running for something, Congress or state representative, and the Crown Heights Community Council endorsed her opponent. So she wrote to the Rebbe, I'm a frum lady, the opponent is who knows what, and this is what Lubavitch is doing. Lubavitch isn't doing anything. These are a group of private individuals who are community activists who have certain interests in mind. Lubavitch doesn't back anybody because Lubavitch has no political affiliation whatsoever, because we have to speak to every Jew, no matter who he is, no matter what he is. So that idea of involvement in politics, and even in Eretz Yisrael, the only time that I've ever specifically went out was in 1988, where we said to follow Agudas Yisrael. And that was, everybody was shocked by that. Anybody who knew the Rebbe, that the Rebbe went back to his particular party, that was a specific situation, and it was amazing how it worked. I mean, because they got more seats than they ever did before, where they were able to block the Paris becoming prime minister then. So the Rebbe's, prophetically, it worked out Rebbe personally blocked it, like Paris from becoming prime minister and giving back everything at that time. So, but in general, the Rebbe never took any particular stance. But in a situation in America, like prayer in schools, very important. Because, the kids should grow up knowing there's a God, knowing there's basic Shev Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, that there's rules for humanity, that man should live a moral and just life. Education Day, that people schools should be teaching people to be people. All these things were spoken for America. And they're relevant today. Much it's prophetic that Rebbe was speaking about it.
Right, but there are certain issues that, I don't know if it was always this way, but taking a position on the issue is basically saying you side with a certain party.
Look, I don't know exactly.
Like, let's say abortion, for example, right? Like now that has become so polarized politically, that Well, I understand the point of not standing behind a specific party. I don't know if 40 years ago this was the case, but today it's like if you say one way or another on the issue, then you've already said the party that you belong to.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, yeah, like, but to certain no, because no party is going to say no abortion today, unfortunately, or like there's even the Republicans who are we believe in life. Well, it's only at a certain point. The halachic definition of abortion, and the application even for non-Jews, and the whole idea of family. That I think that was the Rebbe didn't so much get stuck on a particular issue, though he mentioned it, but the whole idea of family and children being a blessing, and that there should be a nuclear family. Those are issues that that's not connected to one particular party. That's for America as a whole to learn and to change.
Right, certain values. You were saying about abortion that the halachic definition.
Yeah, 40 days, and then there's no possibility for abortion halachically unless. I mean, again, I'm because there are certain times and places, etc. But generally,
40 days.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because until 40 days, the fetus hasn't really become a fetus, even medically as such.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Right. There isn't even a heart at that.
Yeah.
A heartbeat. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought abortion was off the table completely from day one. And Judaism.
Yes, but again,
right. Okay.
And even later times, like there's a specific situation I remember for Chabad. There was one of the Lubavitcher families, the girl got pregnant. And there was no health issue involved. And the Rabbi Chabad allowed an abortion. I don't know as if how reason I wasn't privy to all the details I need to know. I just know the fact.
Right.
So in other words,
speak to your rabbi.
What?
Speak to your rabbi.
Yeah. I hate writing that. I also did the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and on certain issues, I wrote consult the local rabbi, and I hate doing that because you're ducking the question. But you can't paskin out of a book. You've got to paskin in real life situations for real life situations, and and they all change and they all vary.
Right. So what's the point of the book?
Oh, general guidelines. Shulchan Aruch is like you have to know general guidelines.
You have to know what questions to ask.
You have to know what questions to ask, and even the answers, which are particular, generally going to fall into general categories. But yeah, you got a particular issue, go to Rav.
Okay, so what you had said was that in 1988, the Rebbe deviated from his regular policy to not weigh in on a specific side. Now, because it sounded like there was the existential threat towards Israel.
Yeah.
Some people are of the opinion that we're in a similar state in America now. There's an existential quality to the change. There's a zeitgeist that certain things are pushing a little bit too far. Certain ideas.
It definitely is, a very you're going one way or the other way. Now, to tell you that...
Yeah, it feels like there's... Ray Dalio?
I've heard the name. I don't know.
He's a very famous investor. He has a couple of great books. One of his books, I think, is called Principles. One of the more successful investors. And he's... what do investors do? Not only pick companies, but they identify trends, industry trends, global trends. So he said, listen, I don't know what's going to happen, but I read an article by him today. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a very high probability of instability coming. Right? Oh. So, of course, I know you don't want to speak for it, would be inappropriate, but just in terms of, we're also left with a lot of ideas and guidance in terms of ways one could or should think about a situation. Do you feel like there's some similarities between now and 1988, something to learn from that it would be appropriate to get involved more so politically than at other times.
Again, in 1974, this is when the Rebbe was shouting, screaming about the territories. So I was the assistant editor of what was used for us, the journal. That was, the first English, quote, modern English Chabad publication. And the Rebbe actually looked over all our articles. Strange, because it was, whatever. It wasn't.
Who was the audience for Ufaratza?
Lubavitcher, the Chabad houses. English-speaking.
I'm saying English-speaking Lubavitchers.
English-speaking Lubavitchers, basically for Lubavitchers to give to their own people and to people in class. And Chabad houses, just in general, to have something to give a voice to that same audience who like Six English started for. Know what was this. So we produced a beautiful article about the situation not to give back land, and had all the the right things the Rebbe was saying. And the Rebbe said, don't publish the article, because the name of your publication is Ufaratzta, and you have to spread out to everybody. There are people who are on the left wing who will be turned off by such an article, and you want to bring them close to Yiddishkeit and not exclude them. Now, the Rebbe said those things are for bragging. They were publicized all over.
Right.
But apparently, there was a distinction about taking a public stance in English, making a statement of such. I mean, a lot of things we wrote, in certain times that I would speak publicly, and gave them over to Rabbi Kinsky to check with, and I don't know. Many times, I don't know if it was his particular personal decision or it came from the Rebbe, but the articles were not published. Now that's clear. It's curious. Some things were, like the whole Mashiach campaign. The Rebbe was behind.
Right.
Even like putting it out in his name, etc., etc. But political things and that's also political things he didn't want publicly. It was public.
Right. Just recognizing that it was too divisive.
Yeah. So, and he, but I think it's pretty clear. If you teach people ideas and values, principles of life, they're going to know where to choose.
Right.
But if you say, like there's certain people who just hate Donald Trump. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not a super fan of Donald Trump either.
Because we're told to.
What?
I said because we're told to.
Yeah, but
he's 80 years old, and in the last 10 years we've been told to hate him.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. But there are people who just will never vote for Donald Trump. They just won't. So if I would tell you that the Lubavitcher Rebbe tells you to vote Donald Trump, I think there are people who would don't need to listen to Lubavitcher. Now, if you'll tell them, Lubavitcher Rebbe tells you that their values and thing that, hey, American family is right now at a crossroads. Families are being ripped apart. Values of work, that you earn your living in a very natural way. Values that you support Israel, because without flinching, without mincing words, without pressuring them the other way. So they won't vote. So they won't vote the other side.
Right.
But they'll vote, and that's okay. They don't have to vote for Trump necessarily.
Well, it seems like it seems like now, like in this election more than the other, the vote is not for, the vote is against.
Yeah.
No one is voting for anyone. Someone is voting against something, meaning the primary reason to vote for Donald Trump is to vote against the administration,
everything that's happening to us.
Right. And the primary reason the Democrats will say to vote for them is to not vote for Donald Trump, right? Those are the ads, right? That's what I say. Don't vote for them. Don't vote for them. And those are the reasons. I think most people will vote. There won't be a vote for. It'll be a vote against.
Yeah. Look, and I got to tell you, there are bumper sticks in Israel. There's no hope. There's no hope but Mashiach. I hate those. Because I really believe we should get our own act together. And Mashiach's going to come when we get our own act together. It's not going to come on a white horse from above. That said, we're really reaching in times when, we need Mashiach in a very real way. And that hurts to say that because, like I said, my personal approach is get your act together. Come on.
Right.
We can. And ultimately, really, we must. But you look at the world around you and you're amazed. Like, my parents didn't raise me in such a world.
Right. I don't know if I'm just getting a little bit older and more mature and I'm looking at situations differently or the world actually is very different. But it feels to me that we're at the tipping point on some real serious issues.
Yeah.
You would agree with that? Meaning 40 years ago, it didn't feel this way.
I haven't felt this way like since the Rebbe started shouting Mashiach. That was, the clear sign that we're in a break from where we were before. Why was he pushing this? The Rebbe was shouting Mashiach from the first day, and
1950.
Yeah, from the first mile, Basel Lagani.
Right.
Our job is to bring the Shechita down here when Mashiach says, but there was a sense very much of we're doing it ourselves, building the framework, building the garden, pruning the weeds here, bring this, working to get it get there on our own steam.
But it feels like we're going backwards, no?
Oh, that's what I'm trying to say. Suddenly, from 1950 on, from Tafshin Nunan, which is 1990, there was almost, I want to say desperation, because the Rebbe was never, desperation could never be used correctly for the Rebbe, but this abandon of like, it's got to be now. It's got to be now. We've got to get this now.
From what years?
From 1990.
Got it.
And yeah, that was a turning point.
Okay, so you've been in this mode of urgency for 35 years.
Oh, ever since the Rebbe was in that mode, anyone who's been with the Rebbe, wow. And when the Rebbe came back from the old, and he said, now I've done all I can, now it's up to you. Everybody was shocked, shaken to the core, and we've never recovered. There's the sense of, hey, it's got to be now. We've got to make it happen. And I keep saying, we, because the Rebbe told us to do it ourselves. He's not expecting divine intervention from above. He's expecting that we get our own act together and do it right. And we can. On the contrary, this is an openness today that we need change much more than ever before. So yeah, I see that there is ground for that to take hold. But it's a big job out there because the way, the media has done, the brainwashing that's going on, or the brain, brain filthing that's going on.
Yeah.
It's preposterous.
We're being programmed by the programs.
Oh, almost literally. Like, like they, where you click is now.
Well, you asked me about hating Trump. It's why do people hate Trump? It's because they've been programmed to hate Trump.
Yeah.
Most people did not arrive at this conclusion themselves, because if they did, they would have concluded in 2010, and he was quite likable in 2010.
Yeah. Whatever, like, again, I don't want to be political, but Trump has said this system he's the outsider. He's not part of the system.
Right.
As opposed to, your two parties, which are really one, this guy comes from the outside. He's going to rock the boat. But when the boat is rocked, it can be steered in a different direction, and that's my hope.
Right, I hear that.
And it's a real hope, because people are searching for genuine change.
What do you think's at risk?
Everything. I mean, you live in a gated. You have a gate around your house.
Yeah.
Do you have a gun?
Yeah.
My parents, we didn't have a gun in the house. We didn't think of that when I grew up. I don't have one today, but I should.
Right, meaning you think you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that our actual safety could be threatened in a real way. I mean, I lived through the riots in Crown Heights. You probably did also.
Yeah, my family I was 6 years old. My family was upstate. We stayed upstate.
Oh, but I came in the day after the kid was run over. So the big thing had already happened. But I saw people marching down the streets, Heil Hitler, and they meant it. When you saw these Black Lives Matter, now, I'm not against blacks. I don't want to speak, politically, but that was a scary situation. Places were being burnt down. Really, and it was spreading, and it was being encouraged.
Right.
Can you imagine? And then, times are still good. Our economy. I'm not an economist. I don't read Dalio, so I don't know or know all these enough to speak. I don't like to speak in areas which I'm an expert. But it sure looks like our economy is being held together by chewing gum. And there's only so long that chewing gum is going to last. And so times were good. And there were still riots. Can you imagine?
But times were good. There was also a lot of free time. And there weren't sports going on.
Yeah.
There weren't sports games. But yeah.
No,
that was very scary.
Yeah, and when times get bad.
It was very scary the way it was encouraged, minimized. The media would call them peaceful riots, peaceful protests, while there were videos of stores burning and looting and
people being shot. And people on the other side shooting back. I mean, I lived in Israel for 30 years. I served in the army. I had a gun in my hand. I was taught how to use it. It's a very terrible thing when you see a person shot in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, I was Chicago in 1968. We, know this idea of like, why kill somebody in a war? Why should people die? And die for what? It just spoke to me at this very human level. Forget about it from Yiddishkeit.
Yes.
Just like, hey, humanity, be a mensch. Respect another person. See that person as a person. His life is valuable because God created him and gave him a life. So respect that. And that's, again, without, cut the Torah mitzvahs out of it for a second. Just humanity.
So if there's an urgent call, there was an urgent call from the Rebbe in 1990, to what? Meaning practically to what? Because it feels bigger than anything you can do or I can do. To what? What's the call to?
Look, I don't know what the urgent call would be today, because, like, hey, the other side ain't so great either. Like, let's be honest.
No, it's not a political thing. It's not this is not one side or another. I think what you said was correct. The boat needs to be rocked, and you have one person willing to rock it.
So, and hopefully when the boat is being rocked, I'd like to, I steer things differently.
I think the greatest evidence of that, of being careful to pick like a side too closely, is what recently happened with Candace Owens, and a lot of this podcast has been about the Rebbe, where Candace Owens was a darling of many religious people for a while. So she said things that some agreed with, but she clearly wasn't very knowledgeable. She clearly, like I saw her once on a podcast with I think it was Joe Rogan, and he was asking her questions about climate change, and she was just saying things that were right-wing talking points. They weren't really thought through. She didn't understand them. They weren't backed up by real knowledge or facts. She just was somewhat articulate and said it. But it was paper thin. As soon as he asked 2 or 3 questions, I'm not even talking about the truth of the matter. I'm talking about just her knowledge of the subject she was talking about. It was non-existent.
That's why I don't speak about the issues. That's not really, because I don't know.
Right. But my point is that
what I do know about
now she's turned in a lot of ways in the last year. She's from an anti-Semitic standpoint, and most recently talking very negatively about the Rebbe. And I think what the lesson for us is not to fall in love with any particular party. Oh. There isn't a home there for us, even if Trump has religious grandchildren. There isn't a home there at all. But there is. That being said, if there is someone willing to rock the boat, and the boat
needs to be rocked,
the boat needs to be rocked. So
okay,
right, maybe you reluctantly go, but it's not an allegiance to a party. It's not an allegiance to a person.
Not to a person.
Yes.
No, and look, but also one of the things I actually like. I don't know who Candace Owens is. I've barely, I've seen her name. I've seen, as you said, she was once touted highly. So I looked. Oh yeah, that's but I don't, it's not my business, and it's not where I want my life to be focused. I think that's also a very important thing, by the way. By reading the newspapers, is it going to make a difference one bit? If you spend that same time learning a word of Torah, you'd be adding godly energy to the world and changing your own life to the better. Any moment which you're not doing that. The Rebbe would always speak about Divrim B'Telim. Divrim B'Telim it's not Divrim Asurim. You're not speaking Lashon Hara, or you're not speaking something bad about somebody. No slander, no lies, just wasted words.
It's not particularly meaningful.
You're not doing anything with your life at that moment. And the Rebbe wanted every moment of our lives to be productive, powerful, directed to a purpose, directed to a godly goal, and to spread light in this world. So that's what we should be doing. And there's a very real factor that by doing that, like when the Rebbe spoke about living Mashiachdik, he says, how are you going to bring Mashiach? By living Mashiachdik. And people didn't understand what he meant. Oh, we got to learn about Mashiach. And the Rebbe was, no, we have to live it. What did he mean? Add a little bit of knowledge, love, kindness to your actions. Why? Because when you do that, when you live Mashiachdik, the people around you look at you and say, hey, look at that guy. There's certain depth, a certain joy. Like you spoke about the joy and the pleasure.
Yes, yeah.
I said, look at that person. He's got it. And he's got a smile. He's happy. And he's warm. And he's inviting. I want to live like that. That is bringing Mashiach. Because sooner or later, you want to live that way. And your neighbor wants to live that way. And he wants to live that way. And the world changes.
Amen. Amen. If you had a billboard and you can put anything on it for the world to see, what would it be? A message, your call to action, or not action?
I don't know. Okay. Because what I want to say, but how to make it again, to make a communicated message, that's a challenge. What I want to say is that we have to bring Mashiach, and we have to bring a world of depth, meaning, and purpose, and godly light. That is within our potential.
Is a Jewish message a global message?
Oh, it's a global. Mashiach isn't just for Jews. He's going to kill 3 billion Chinese.
No, God forbid. What I'm saying is that...
No, that's a global message. Mashiach is a universal, together, the Rebbe quite frequently spoke about this, that right before he speaks about Mashiach, Rambam speaks about Hashem Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. Because the two are very much connected. The world at large has got to be a beautiful, moral, healthy world for Mashiach to really come and do what he wants.
Right.
And it's possible. Really. People, when you give people, even non-Jews, the chance to live that way, they just, wow, this is meaningful. I mean, I live in Boca Raton. The Boca Raton synagogue is a very special place. And the non-Jews who work there, like they have, security, they have custodians. They work. You people, you've got a very special lifestyle, because it's a very special community. Boca Raton. I have to give Rebbe Goldberg a lot of credit. Like he's a special guy, and he's built a community.
Ephraim,
yeah.
Yeah, I've been in the show.
No, he's got it, and he's built a community. And like I said, the goyim, the non-Jews, they look at this and say, "Hey, this is a lifestyle," And there's like some of them are like, very simple, straightforward, people, but they're just like, "Oh wow, like you guys got it together somehow," because when people see life of meaning, depth, purpose, and joy, the message is home. So Mashiach is a message for all of humanity. Again, how to what to say, how to put it out on a billboard. You got to have professionals.
Professional translator.
Yeah,
but he needs
also, a translator isn't just, like.
I understand that.
But the message is a real one, which everyone can tune into. Definitely everyone can tune into. And that is the pressing message today, because it's the only alternative. In the sense of, used to be, people would live normal lives, and you could tell them, learn a little, upgrade your behavior a little bit more, upgrade this. Here, in today's situation, there's really, we really got to make thorough, deep change that goes through all levels.
Right. Kind of what I'm wondering about is that in some sense, there's a lot of progress in the sense that, let's take it just in terms of your work, right? You've progressed in your work, what you've been trying to do. You've done more of what you were trying to do 50 years ago. You've succeeded. You've got out a lot of stuff, right? And if you take Chabad, the movement, it's grown tremendously. Even religious Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, is growing now, I believe.
Huge.
But we're still going backwards. So it feels like, and it's not only in that regard, even in terms of mental health, trauma work, so many movements that felt like this would be very good for the world have exploded, but the world that doesn't seem to have gotten better. So there's, I know, a little bit of hopelessness in that.
Look,
but that's kind of what I'm wondering about with the message is, okay, but what good is it going to do?
Well, no, because look, one of the things I feel, and it's just like, it's a hurting feel, that Lubavitch has exploded, but how many people are living Lubavitch today? I mean, those people, you may be a card carrier, and yes, I'm not putting anybody down. Everybody has their own inner Pintel Yid, and the Pintel Yid comes out in many forms. But the values that Rebbe taught the Mendel Futterfest type Yid. How many of those do you see running around the street? And I'm going to have to go for the ends. In other words, that type of Chabad personality, that this is it. Shmuel Munkus once hung himself up in front of the altar Rebbe's gate. He says, what are you doing? You hang yourself up? Look, a shoemaker hangs up a shoe. A tailor hangs up a suit. The Rebbe should hang up a chassid. Here I am. So how many people today can you hang on the Rebbe's doorstep? Again, I saw exemplars. I lived with them. They changed my life. Can people look at me and say this is an exemplar? Well, not really. Not at the level that they were. So, I've got work. I got work to do, and there's a lot of us today have that work to do.
Right. Do you know David Hawkins, the writer David Hawkins?
Excuse me?
David Hawkins. Do you know the writer?
The British guy was...
No, not Richard Dawkins.
Oh.
David Hawkins, he's trying to think how to describe him. But no, he's quite spiritual in his approach and his worldview. And he deals a lot with kinesiology,
mm-hmm.
right? Where you can measure things by essentially saying that everyone has the ability to tap into a level of truth and use your body to identify it. So through these methods, he's taken different emotions, different states of beings, and he's quantified them, right? So, for example, at the lowest level the highest level would be, what's the most life-affirming feeling? So, for example, joy is a much more life-affirming feeling than fear. But fear is more life-affirming than depression. Depression might even be a little more life-affirming than shame, right? So he scores these with numbers. And then he'll give feelings numbers and he gives people numbers. I'm going somewhere with this point. Everything is graded on a level of 0 to 1,000. And he's like, the critical number is 200. Anything over 200 is life-affirming, anything below 200. And I think the feeling that he gets at 200 is something like courage. Right? Courage, like that's where someone opens up to the possibility of the more life-affirming feelings. And then above those, you have joy and love, and at the highest levels, enlightenment. So what he goes through is that different people have reached very high levels of enlightenment. Let's say someone like Moses, right? So if we scored Moses was, on a scale of 0 to 1,000, he'll have a way to grade him. Okay, you could grade anyone in history because he can use, someone's body numbers. But I'm getting somewhere with the point. Let's just say, okay, he's 988, right? The level of enlightenment that this person reached, incredible. Then he talks about societies, right? And you see in certain societies say, okay, the society scores at 210. But you say, how does society score at 210? You walk around the society, You see so many people who are not living, like the average person is not living at courage. So what he explains there is that the way his mathematics work, for whatever reason, is that one person
tips the scale,
but in disproportional ways, not in ways that you'd say, if I have one score of 1,000 and 5 at 200, now, right, combined, I have 2,000 divided by 5, so now I have 400 each. No. One person will bring it up. If one person is there, it can bring up a whole society by...
Yeah, that's Rebbe.
Right. So that idea, how one person can have a tremendous, tremendous impact. So that's, I guess, not to... I shared something hopeless, which is not my typical approach, and it's not my worldview. I'm a very positive, optimistic, hopeful person. At the same time, I'm seeing things...
You look at the world.
No, also, we can't forget, COVID was a few years ago, and there were some miserable policies that were pushed forth. There were a lot of people who came running to Florida for a reason. And it doesn't seem so out of the question that something significant like that can happen in the next couple of months or couple of years.
Oh, they're already semi-trying it.
Possibly.
Yeah, I'm saying there's all sorts of... You're hearing about this and hearing about that, you know...
Yeah, it has reached the level of COVID, but I'm saying it doesn't seem so far-fetched. They did it once or twice, whatever it was that had happened, and a lot of people going along with it. Yeah. There were things I saw that blew me away. I had friends coming from California to Florida. Don't take pictures of me. I don't want to be seen here. Why not? Because their friends couldn't know that they were...
without a mask.
Exactly, engaging in a lifestyle here. So this whole thing is a game. It's all a game, and people are buying into this thing, but this game is destroying businesses, destroying kids, destroying education, schooling. So seeing certain things, I obviously got to a certain place on points. It's not really where I spend most of my time thinking or most of my time talking or wondering. I used to read a lot of news, but I moved away from that. But now again, I'm seeing certain things and saying, does it justify waking certain things up inside myself and inside of other people? Hey, is there a call to action needed to get more engaged in some way? I'm not sure.
An answer. Lubavitcher Rebbe shouldn't be speaking about Stephen Covey, or should be speaking about Stephen Covey without the name. But Covey speaks about expanding circles, which I think is a real way. The Rebbe, I remember, again, this was the early 70s. Why are rabbis speaking about the Vietnam War? Is anything they're going to say going to have an effect? Let them speak about something in their community that they can actually affect change. You know, Baruch Hashem, you get on screen. People, your circle has expanded.
Right.
So Baruch Hashem, the circle is getting out a little bit wider. And I hope everyone who sees starts looking for a little bit more. Really, I mean, exactly that. And as they tune into that, they will get more, and their life will be full of more. And that type of movement is going to be real, going to change people, because when you see something real, your life changes, and you adapt that. You can fall back. But in the end, you've tasted the truth, and you're not going back. You're just not going back. So when you have an expanding circle, the circle expands a little bit more and a little bit more. As one person takes it further, and he takes it further, and he meets another person, and not only does he takes the same message, he expands on the message in his own way with his own truth, which is more important than just parroting the message he heard from you.
Right.
So that's what's going to make the change, and the world is, like I said, they're ready for it because we're ready for it because we all feel, hey, this is not the world we grew up in. We want something different. Something's got to change, and the real change has got to come from the inside. And I think that's the final. That's the message where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah, and I generally agree with that. I have a podcast where I call We Are Patient Zero. At the end of the day, all of the issues we see out there, it's the work on the inside we got to do. Final question I have. I've heard this story. I don't know the source of it. Is that the Baal Shem Tov once, I don't know if he banged his head against a tree or something like that. And said, what happened? And he said, I just had a vision of where my teachings will go to, and it wasn't pretty. And as a result, something like, you've ever heard the story? Something vague about seeing something about I may be missing some of the details, but the concept was that the Baal Shem Tov saw where some of his teachings were going to go and what it was going to lead to, like how people were going to take it and understand it and actually misunderstand it in some ways. And as a result, he was not so happy for a moment.
Doesn't quite
register. Okay, I'll see if I can find the source. I know I've heard it more than once. I'm wondering, without the question leads to something else. It's connected to something you shared a few minutes ago, but if the Rebbe saw in 1990 where his movement was leading to, happy or unhappy, like meaning seeing all this progression in 1990, do you think that what he was talking about, what he was pushing, what he was moving for, what he was encouraging his people to move towards, what he was saying in 1990 and in 2024, on paper, by the numbers, a lot has grown, has expanded. You talk about expanding circles, which is some of what made me think about it. Like he expanded his circle quite well into people who did a good job expanding their circles.
Yeah. When Jonathan Sachs said that Rebbe didn't make followers, he made leaders, what's the word behind that? What is a leader? Someone who has a vision that's genuine, true, gives people meaning, depth, purpose, direction.
Mm-hmm.
So when you make leaders in that way, your message continues even afterwards, even 30 years afterwards.
Right. So my question is, would he be pleased by the way his message translated? Are you seeing a consistency between the two?
The Rebbe was simultaneously the most happy person, every positive achievement.
And the least satisfied.
Exactly. Really. People, beautiful story. Groner from Australia. And so he went there, he made a school for 300 girls. And he took and it was in 1950s, so they got a wide camera lens in 1950s to make a picture of 300 girls. It was amazing. So he made a picture of all the girls, rolled it up, brought it to the Rebbe, and there was a little bit of a glimmer of a smile on the Rebbe's face. And then he turned very serious. He says, Rabbi Groner, do you think I'm satisfied with only 300 girls? Taking it even further, in I think 1989, the board of Jewish Education in New York City came to the Rebbe, and they were very satisfied because for the first time in the history of their movement, 51% of Jewish children in New York City were receiving some sort of Jewish education. Some sort, any sort, but they got 51% of some sort of Jewish education. They came to the Rebbe and said, "What about the other 49?"
Right.
And so but he always would appreciate every little thing that you did. So where are we today? Look, we're living in challenges that frum kids today stay frum, despite having an internet, is a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. And, this whole, in many places, throw out your computers, this, and, there is some validity to that approach, but that was never Lubavitcher's approach. Good, bad, or indifferent, the Rebbe was very much use it, and to a certain extent, like, well, you run away from it. It's gonna run after you. So I'm contrary. Tune in, but for a kid to grow up today with any kind of, frumkeit, really religious observance, with having seen with the internet in front of him, an absolute miracle. So, judging from that perspective, we're looking at miraculous Jews, tons of miraculous Jews. So, yeah, are they Mendelfutterfesses? No, they're not men of Lutfes.
Right.
Are they, in the classic story, when Zusha said, well, they go up to heaven, they're not going to ask me, why aren't there Abraham, why aren't there Isaac, why aren't there Jacob? Well, they're going to ask you, why aren't there Zusha? Are they being Zusha? Well, to the fullest extent that they can. And hopefully they'll be fuller. And I think the Rebbe that's exactly the way the Rebbe would look at it, at this generation. There's things happening today greater than ever before, both in the numbers and the outside,
yes,
and where it's taken, and also in the personal world of Chassidim. Like in my work, I'm meeting like younger guys, and they're into these sichas, and they're wow, they're teaching me stuff. Yeah, wow. So yeah, this what the Rebbe would be proud with, what the Rebbe was satisfied with, and he'd have that, and and the Rebbe had a way of emphasizing the positive all the time. But yes,
also pushing for more,
and also holding up a stark mirror in front of you, so that you recognize, nobody has to tell you your own chesronos, your own faults, your own lackings. Just look in the mirror. You are smart enough yourself to realize them, and that I would hold up the mirror.
L'chaim to that. On that note, I thank you very much for, first of all, for meeting you in person, and also for the work you've done. And I'll continue to be a student of yours.
Thank you. Not of mine.
Thank you. What?
Not of mine. Not of mine. Like one of the things that every time that I would speak publicly, say, I'm not speaking as an individual, I'm speaking for a movement. And I'm not, because, one of the things I got to take, I want teachings to come out as his, not mine.
There was a sikh I learned, translated by you, where it mentioned that if you learn Torah from someone, then you should refer to them as your father.
Yeah,
so I'll refer to the Rebbe as my grandfather. So, and your words, your word translated, so you can accept it. Thank you. Thank you very much.